Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner. No, you are not reading that wrong. This is an actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. It's only been a year since the last one I did, and I figured why not show people that I do in fact play this game still, with an update to what I played, or what I featured last year, and that is Zefra. A lot of things have changed since the last time this deck was featured on this channel. Master Rule 4 came into effect, Danglong is banned, we didn't get Needle Fiber and Flames of Destruction, Heavy Metal Foes Electromite is out, and Chronograph Sorcerer got banned. And these are all kind of relevant things because the deck was able to make use of a lot of these cards. And as a result, we have here a very solid Rogue Tier 2 deck. I won't say Tier 1.5 because Tier 1.5 is a myth, but it's reasonably strong. Unfortunately, I think it's a little bit hindered by the fact we don't have all the tools that Japan has, and this deck has always been underrepresented here, but it sees play and it's even got some tops under his belt now. What was it? I think it's got 3 YCS tops, 2 in Europe, 1 in America. I think it's got a couple of European national tops, and a chillin' top 3. It's also got a couple of regional tops over the past, well, like over the last 2 weeks, there was like a top 8 where the guy was playing with Chronograph, and he said what he would make changes to after Chronograph got banned. And then we got also a top 8, I believe, pure Zefra list that from an LA Regionals. That was a big one too, so deck's performingly well in spite of these handicaps. And I'll show you guys the build I'm currently playing with right now. I was finally able to update it to the way that I wanted. For a very long time I've been playing pure, but I wanted to play the Mythical Beast build, but I wasn't able to get a hold of the 3rd Master Service. A trip to Regionals a couple weeks ago was able to fix that, and here we are. So yes, this is the Mythical Beast Chronograph build of the deck. I like the higher ceiling that those 2 engines give, as it allows me to make Electromite without having to use my Pendulum Summon, with thus getting me more value out of the Pendulum Summon. And that's, I feel like, the very important thing to playing a deck like this for Pendulum Edition is just trying to get maximum value off of your Pendulum Summons as much as you can. Because the Pendulum mechanic is still very much unfair, even in spite of the changes to Master Rule 4, which is, of course, Monster Summon from the extra deck via Pendulum Summon, go into the extra Monster Zone, and your left and rightmost Spell and Trap card zones are where you place your scales, thus limiting the amount of back row you have, but that's okay. Zefra only ever really plays a couple sets to begin with. So yeah, let's break this down, shall we? This is probably going to be a big video too, because I do got to explain things, as it's been a whole year, and some of the context of this deck has changed. So, for the monsters, 3 copies of Zefrath. Your ability to win games pretty much hinges on how often you're able to resolve a Zefrath. You can take a Zefra monster from your deck to your extra deck and put it face up in order to copy its skill to end a turn, and its monster effect is irrelevant because Master Rule 4 kind of made it unplayable. 2 copies of Zefranio. Since I'm not playing the pure build, I had to cut down on some of my cards in order to make room for the engines. So I'm playing the very minimalist Zefra lineup. 1 Zefra Thuban, 1 Zefra Saiton, 1 Zefra Wendy. I'm really happy that Pendulum Evolution made these guys foil. Although, yeah, you might notice this is not the ultra rare. I actually got rid of my original Zefra deck last year to facilitate buying a True Draco deck, but then I ended up getting this back later because I missed playing this. And 1 Zefraxi. I keep wanting to call him Zefrason, but so these guys, this is the Zefra engine. This is the minimal amount you can run. Pure builds play 3 of this and 2 of this, and just a quick recap of their skills. All these guys, if they're in scale, prevent you from pendulum summoning monsters other than Zefra or their respective archetypes. They're 1 and 7, and they all have effects that activate when they're pendulum summoned and something else happens. So when this guy is pendulum summoned or destroyed as a monster, you can search a Zefra or Yangzing spell or trap card, which means your field spell, Oracle, and your 2 powerful counter traps. These 2, when pendulum summoned or normal summon, targets another Zefra or Tellarknight monster in your monster or pendulum zones, destroys him in order to pop a face down, pop a face up. This on pendulum or ritual or normal summon adds a face up Zefra monster from or ritual beast monster from your extra deck to your hand. And this on summon from the main deck or pendulum summon turns any of your other Zefra or Yangzing monsters into tuners, but if you do so, when he leaves the field, he goes to the bottom of the deck. So Zefra Wendy has become immensely more powerful in this format than before, because just pendulum summoning her from extra deck alone allows you to grab back any of these guys, normal summon it, and you can go into a link to such as Electromite and go from there. And it's just useful in a more grindy format such as the one that we're going to be heading into, but with Sky Strikers and such being our thing. So if you're not playing Wendy, you really need to be, and in Pure I might actually consider running a 2nd copy of it. And that's it for the Zefra lineup. Then for the engines that we're playing for this deck, so first off, we're playing the Destrudo engine. So When this guy is in your graveyard and you have no monsters, you can special summon it. On normal or special summon, you can add this, and this is more or less just a vanilla, but it is a scale 0 with no restrictions in that regard. So you can scale this in Zefra and Pendulum Summon 1 to 6, and that's pretty much all you need. It's also level 7, and we are playing Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon in this build, so being able to summon it out, go into a rank 7 is pretty nice. And because we're playing this guy, he is a dragon, so you can access it off of Dragon Shrine, Foolish Burial, and if you want to, Dragon Ravine. Then we're playing the Chronograph engine. So, Chronograph Sorcerer, while it's in the hand and the card you control is destroyed, you can special summon it, and as well as one additional monster out of your hand. His other effect is, I think, irrelevant. Yeah, it's irrelevant because it involves Zark, and nobody plays that shitty deck. And the scale effect is you can destroy it in order to special summon this from your deck or place it in scale. You can't play this in scale if you control monsters, which is awful. And if you have a non-magician in your pendulum scale, it becomes a scale 4. Being a scale 4 is not completely terrible because you can put any of your scale 7s in at least pendulum summon Zefra and go from there. And Chronograph if you happen to have Zefra as your scale. And his on-field effect is actually kind of useful, as the first time your pendulum monster zone, a card in your pendulum monster zone would be destroyed by your opponent's card effect, it's not. Basically, if you're able to pop this to summon this, you can slam your Zefra down, use its skill, and not have to worry about getting popped by Ghost Hooker, which is one of the biggest enemies to this deck. Also, slight note, Mr. Chronograph here is a level 6 spellcaster, so that allows you to get access to certain rank 6s, like Naruto, if you choose to play it. Then our last engine is the Mythical Beast engine. So, Jackal King and Master Swordburst both have the ability of, if they're the only cards in your scale, you can destroy them in order to add a Mythical Beast Pendulum Monster from your deck to your hand except himself, special summon a Mythical Beast Pendulum Monster from your extra deck except himself. They also have the on-field effect of whenever a spell is activated, they gain 2 counters. This can remove 4 counters from himself to banish your opponent's monster and gain its attack at end of turn. This can remove 2 counters from anywhere inside the field to negate the activation of a monster effect during another player's turn and kill it. So it's a quick effect, it's a level 6, so you can pendulum summon it actually. And it's, of all the cards you can play, this is actually not a bad one to draw, because you can at least just raw pendulum summon it or special summon it off of Astrograph, or you can tribute summon an Ibli that your opponent gave you off of their Nightmare combos in order to have a 2400 body that negates stuff on other player's turn. So that's it for the Zefra lineup and the starter cards. Again, the goal is to try and make Electromite without having to use your Pendulum Summon, as it just gets you maximum value off of it. And then lastly, we're also running an Armageddon Knight and a Destrudo. Since we're playing Dragon Shrine, you might as well run the copy of Destrudo. While this card is in your graveyard in your hand, you can special summon it by paying half your life and targeting a monster you control whose level is 6 or less. Yeah, you target a level 6 or lower monster you control, pay half your life, special summon this. If you do, his level is reduced by that of the monster you target, so if you target Armageddon Knight, he becomes a level 3, and when he leaves the field, he goes to the bottom of the deck. So, basically, as long as you have this in your hand or graveyard, any level 6 or lower monster you control can be used to make a level 7 synchro summon, and level 7s aren't bad right now. It's unfortunate that Ancient Fairy Dragon is banned, but we still have a decent amount of level 7s, and Armageddon Knight allows you to dump this, or Dark Worm, on normal or pendulum summon, which is useful, and basically this means that at the very worst, if you open with Armageddon Knight or Rhoda, you can normal summon this, dump this, and go into a level 7 Synchro. If you need to break a board, Black Rose Dragon. If you need to just punch over something, it can be Yazi or Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, Meteor Burst Dragon. I always get those two mixed up in order to like turn off monster effects. Or you can go into F.A. Dong Dragster at the very worst and just have some form of negation going into the next turn, because level 7 Synchros now have access to a quick effect spell or trap negate. And then running out 2 copies of Ghost Ogre and Ash Blossom Ghost Ogre. Yeah, just hand traps. Kind of what we're at for Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. If I could, I'd be playing Infinite Impermanence, but I don't have the money to get those. I'm trying to build Oracle Think Tank 2 at this time, and I also kind of made a investment on another deck that you'll see at some point. But yeah, Ash Blossom's kind of really good. It's one of the best hand traps in the game, and Ghost Ogre is still... Like, Ghost Ogre's kind of lost some value compared to before, seeing as Pendulum Magician's kind of dead, but this is still very useful against certain matchups, specifically if you're up against something like Pure Sky Striker. You can Ghost Ogre the multi-roll, which is what allows him to snowball advantage and kill you. You can Ghost Ogre if you're able to a Fireball Dragon against the Nightmare spam decks, and it's kind of... It's really hit or miss against Altergeist, but that deck should hopefully be like falling out, but Yeah, it's solid, and I'm playing these at 2 because drawing them at 3 in multiples in your hand's kind of clunky. You want to be able to have as many of your combo and starter cards as possible in a deck like this, and one of our synchro monsters and our field spell is able to search these and get them to hand. So, yeah, you can get away with running less of these, and I've honestly considered also running a copy of Effect Veiler. Once Summon Sorceress is legal, I will be playing her, because you can use Summon Sorceress to target Chronograph Sorcerer, special summon Veiler out of deck, and go into level 7 Synchro right then and there. On to the spells. 3 copies of Zefra Providence. It searches out any Zefra card in the deck, and in the turn after it's sent to the graveyard, if the Zefra cards would be destroyed, you can banish it to protect them. It's really nice for some of your effects. You can use, say, your Zefra Thuban or Zefra Saiton to target your Zefra Athen Scale and attempt to destroy your opponent's card. You banish Providence to save it, and their card dies. Pretty neat. 3 copies of Oracle of Zefra. So this is an essay, as Farfa would say, but it's the important things to note is when you play it, you add a Zefra monster from deck to hand, and when you Synchro, Xyz, Fusion, or Ritual summon using Zefra monsters, you gain bonus effects. For this deck, all you're going to be getting is the Synchro and Fusion and Ritual and Xyz effects. Good lord, I cannot talk. So on Synchro summon using a Zefra monster, you can stack any monster on top of your deck. Hello. And on Xyz summon, you can draw a card and discard one. Looting effects are always not the worst to have. It can get Garnets out of the hand, and you play M7 in this deck, so you can use it to get those cards back. And one of the Synchro monsters and Electromite allows you to draw cards while you're comboing, so you can actually use this to do that. The other thing about Oracle Zefra is you can use it to mask some of your monster effects by making it Chain Link 2 if you think your opponent has a Ghost Ogre or an Ash Blossom. If you want to hide like your guy on some effect from being triggered and from being destroyed, mind you, you can use Oracle to get around that. Like it's a pretty common play in the deck now. Like if you don't want them to nuke your guy, you just do that. And 1 copy of Terraforming to search it out. I'm not maxing out on this. I'm not playing the Ravine build, so I'm not in need of multiple Terraformings. And drawing multiple Oracle Zefra sucks because it's a hard once per turn, so you can't do anything with the extra copies you got. Then 3 copies of Dragon Shrine and 1 copy of Foolish Burial to put the Destrudo and Darkworm in graveyard. Drawing multiples of these suck too, but it means that you can play Dragon Shrine, dump Darkworm, summon Darkworm, search your scale 0, and then play any normal summonable Pendulum monster. You immediately go into Electromite. Then running it out, 2 copies of Call by the Grave and 1 Reinforcement of the Army. We know what Rhoda does, and Call by the Grave allows you to target a monster in your opponent's graveyard and banish it, and until the end of the next turn, cards of that name's effects are negated. So, just a brief summary of how you really use this thing. It's used to stop hand traps from ruining your day, because they discard the hand trap for cost. You target it in the graveyard, banish it, and then your Ash Blossom or Ghost Ogre can't do anything, but then it turns off yours. You can also use this to banish a copy of a monster in the graveyard that's the same on field. Like, say your opponent summons a 2nd copy of their big playmaking monster, and they have one in grave already. You banish the one in graveyard to negate the effect of the one on field, which is a kind of very common thing. You can also use this to turn off like effects of floating monsters, like if your opponent has a Trick Clown, or they have a Brandish, Sky Striker Maiden Ray, you can get it out of there. Call by Grace is very, very good. And then rounding it out, 3 trap cards, Zefra War, Divine Strike, and 9 Pillars of Yang Zing. You don't really use 9 Pillars as much as you used to because Denglong's kind of all dead, but it does come up. Pillars allows you to negate and shuffle back a card and pop a Yang Zing card you control. Yeah, like this is probably like the best thing you can use against Sky Striker if you want to stop the engage, because if you Divine Strike and engage, they're just going to go into Kagari and get it back, or at least this shuffles it back in the deck. Divine Strike kills anything, and it requires the least amount of commitment. You just need something in your extra deck face up in order to banish it to negate and kill, and this targets a Zefra card and a card your opponent controls and pops them both. You can use the protection effect of Providence to save your card from being blown up. Then to the extra deck. The Zefra extra deck kind of varies depending on kind of build you're playing. If you're playing like the Psy-Frame engine, then there's more level 8s in here, but I'm not. So instead, we're going to go with our 2 copies of Heavy Metal Foes Electromite as your main playmaker in Link 2. So it has the best link markers for Link 2, down, left, down, right. That's just my opinion on that. And it requires 2 Pendulum monsters, and its effect is when it's link summoned, you can place a Pendulum monster from your deck to your extra deck face up. Once per turn, you can target one other face up card you control, destroy it to add a face up card from your extra deck to your hand. And then lastly, when a card in your Pendulum zones leaves the field, you can draw a card. This last part is a hard once per turn, but the other effects are not. So if you're able to resolve multiples of these, you were able to do some stupid shit with Astrograph Sorcerer, but he's kind of ripped, so that's not the case. But Electromite's just there to correct your extra deck so you can get some maximum value Pendulum Summons. You can also use Oracle of Zefra to stack a hand trap on top of your deck. Electromite pops your scale, you get the draw, and just like that, you've managed to get your hand trap into circulation. And him being a Psychic will also be relevant with the Metalfoes build coming up, because you can link summon this and have Metalfoes Mithrilium in order to make Summon Sorceress, which will go from there. Then, one copy of Borreload Dragon. This is honestly one of the best generic Link 4s in the game, and it's just a really powerful card. It's just unfortunate he's so pricey, because he's just really good to have. So it requires 3+ effect monsters, and once per turn during the player's turn, you can target a monster on the field, and you can reduce its attack and defense by 500 permanently, and your opponent cannot respond to this. And lastly, when he attacks an opponent's monster, you can steal it and have it go to a zone that he points to at the end of the next turn. So your opponent's turn, that monster goes to the graveyard. It doesn't get destroyed, it just gets sent to graveyard. It's non-targeting, so this is really great for outing certain threat cards that are normally difficult for this deck to get over. And that's all I can really say about him. And then lastly, one copy of Zefra Metaltron. His effect is kind of okay. It requires 2+ monsters that were summoned from the extra deck to make, so he's kind of difficult to do, but more or less it's going to be Heavy Metalfoes Electromite plus one other summoned from extra deck card. And while he's face up on the field, if a monster special summon from the extra deck that he points to dies, you can add a card from your graveyard, a monster from your graveyard or from your face up extra deck to your hand, and that's not once per turn, which is neat. And once per turn, you can target one monster from either side of the field that was special summoned from the extra deck, banish them until the end of the turn. So it can clear threats, sort of. It only works on extra deck summon monsters, but the important thing is, though, his link marker is really, really good. Like, down left, middle, and down right is the best stats a Link 3 can have, because it doesn't give your opponent anything, it gives you everything. And when Konami fucks up and prints a generic Link 3 with these stats and requires just 2+ monsters, that's when, like, the real stupid shit is going to happen. Especially if it even has, like, a passable effect. Like, if it's, like, a dragon or a warrior or a spellcaster and it's dark, then we're fucked. And the last thing to note is it is a Zefra monster, so you can protect it with Providence, and you can pop it with Zefra War if you need to get out of scale. And that's it for the Link monsters for the Synchros. We're running one level 9 in Chao Feng. Chao Feng is your ideal Yang Zing to make when you've got pillars in play, as you can kill him, and when he dies, you can add a tuner monster from deck to hand. And also, while the Synchro Summon monster is on the field, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters that have the same attributes as the monsters used to summon him, which is going to of Yang Zing monsters used to summon him. Our Yang Zings in this deck are Earth, so while it is kind of limited, it does mean that Gokis cannot do jack shit while this guy's on board, because all of their monsters are Earth. So it turns off Suprex, it turns off their floating effects. They have to kill this in order to actually combo. It can also hurt Spirals to a limited extent, as it turns off Super Agent and Quick Fix, but they can still activate Tough, so you'll have to stop that. So it's got some more applications now than it did last year. Last year it was really only good against just certain variants of dinosaurs, particularly it's not Lithosagem, but yeah, it's just a level 9 that you can make. And if you kill a opponent's monster by battle or by card effect while he's face up on the board, you can special summon a Yang Zing whose attribute matches that. So if you kill an Earth monster, you get to summon a thing out of the deck. Then that's it for the level 9s. No level 8s since I'm not playing Omega. I will play level 8s though once we start running cards like Zefraxi Zefraxa, there we go, and the Metalfoes build, because you can actually make level 8 synchros off of turning him all your level 5 into a tuner. Then for the level 7s, one Black Rose Dragon, don't need to explain what he does. One FA Dawn Dragster, it's a generic level 7 synchro monster. It has some effect that works with FAs, but that deck doesn't exist, so who the fuck cares? The important things about this guy is when he attacks opponent's monster, it inflicts piercing damage. It gains 300 attack times its level, so it'll be 21 at minimum. And most importantly, once per turn during the other player's turn, where your opponent activates a spell or trap card or spell or trap effect, you can reduce this card's level by 2 to negate and kill it. So for just a level 7 synchro monster, you get a negate, that's nice. Like, many of your level 7 plays will usually involve using this guy to summon a card out of your Pendulum Scale, and you will overlay your level 7 with this to make Absolute Dragon, but sometimes you can't do Meteor Burst Dragon. Instead, you'll use Dawn Dragster instead to just get a negate. One copy of Yazi. He can't be targeted by your opponent's card effects, and when you can once per turn target a Yang Zing monster and a card your opponent controls and kill them, and when he dies, you special summon a worm out of your deck. This is relevant for a couple reasons. It can special summon Zefraxi from your deck to get its effect. You can special summon Zefraniu and you can pop it with other things. Or if you're side decking it, you can summon Mary Mary, and then you can reduce Mary Mary's level by 1 to summon a token, and then you can synchro the Black Rose. And you've managed to bait out a back row with this thing, and then you can Black Rose the field. Your opponent pretty much has to answer this thing with something along the lines of Solemn Warning or Solemn Strike in order to not lose a card. And if they Solemn Strike his activation, then you still get the float. Then one copy of Metaphys Horus. When you synchro summon it using certain materials, you get bonus effects. The important thing here is if you synchro using this and your opponent's your pendulum monster, you get to negate a face-up card in the field permanently, and you steal your opponent's monster. But this card, it cannot attack this turn. That's neat. It allows you to play something like Vampire Dampier something, like the Vampire Boss monster from Darksabers, but I'm not playing him. One copy of Stardust Charge Warrior. On Synchro Summon, you draw a card. You can arrange your Chain Links with Oracle of Zefra to stack a monster on top of your deck and then draw it. And you can battle every special summon monster your opponent controls once each, but you don't really use him for an attacker that often. You're just basically using this as a bridge card to get into a hand trap and go into a rank 6. Like, truth be told, I can see myself cutting this very soon, especially to make room for the Metal Foes engine. One M7 as my only rank 6. I'm playing the Absolute Dragon package, so I'm not playing Naruto or Photon Strike Bouncer, but if you're not playing these two cards, you can play those two instead. Absolute Dragon, its effect is you detach a material to negate your opponent's attack and special summon an Odd Eyes from Graveyard, but you're just going to be summoning this thing through the effect of going into this thing off of Vortex Dragon, and then you link these two off to make Metaltron, which will then trigger his other effect of when this card is sent, this Xyz summoned card is sent from field to graveyard, you special summon an Odd Eyes from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, particularly this year Vortex Dragon, who on summon bounces a face-up monster your opponent controls. Is it attack? Yeah, one face-up attack position monster your opponent controls, and you bounce it, and then once per turn, you play his turn, when your opponent activates a Spell Trap monster effect, you can shuffle a face-up card from your extra, your Pendulum, face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck into the deck to negate and kill it. It's just another negate on top of a 3000 ass, and then one copy of Abyss Dweller as my rank 4. This could also be Tornado Dragon, but I do like the ability of just shutting off my opponent's graveyard effects for a turn, especially if you're in a format where Goki exists. But Tornado Dragon is also very good for popping back row against something like Sky Striker and Altergeist. So that's the deck in a, well, I was going to say nutshell, but this is a 22-minute video. So yeah, that's the deck. It pretty much has been updated for current format. Again, if you don't want to play the Mythical Beast and Chronograph build because they could be seen as too bricky, then you can just cut these things out, run a couple more Zefra monsters and play a higher hand trap count and just play Pure, because Pure has been able to still do stuff. It's got some tops, and yeah, it's not an awful list either. Just I like the higher ceiling these guys give, because I've been playing Pure for quite a while, and I was able to do things, but these things let me do things more frequently. And that's all I can really say about this right now. We're kind of just waiting on some more stuff to come over from Link Rain set. Like, once Needle Fiber comes out, the dynamics of how this deck plays will change quite a bit. And once we also get, if we ever get Denglong back, then also the dynamics of, like, we're just waiting on, like, those two cards, and this deck becomes a hell of a lot better than it currently is. But I still do think, though, there is potential in this. The Metal Foes build, even with just Summon Sorceress alone, I think you can do some things with, and I will definitely try and experiment with that. So far, I've determined that opening Gold Driver and Zafrath allows you to at least end your turn with, what was it? You get to end your turn with a Summon Sorceress in play and an FA Dawn Dragster off of just those two cards alone, and by extension, Zefra Providence and, what do you call it? Painful Decision, there we go. And this is also having likely used Mithrilium's effect to get a bounce. Either you bounce back your opponent's monster, or you bounce your Oracle of Zephyr back, or you don't do that, you just shuffle back Metal Foes Fusion and get the free draw. So take that for what you will. So that's all for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I might do another Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile soon because I do have one other deck that I've been playing, but more or less we'll be going back to Vanguard card camp pretty soon, as I do have a deck I want to feature before we shift into VBT1 format, and then we'll just be waiting on that to kick in. So until next time, if you guys enjoyed this video, until next time, this is BlueStar899, jacking out.